Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep into dreaming of being there in our favorite Bible stories. Tonight, we begin with the story of the widow and the jars of oil from 2 Kings, chapter 4. These aren't sermons. They're stories retold slowly to help your body rest and your soul come home back to God. This video was made to help you drift to sleep while drawing near to something holy. Even if you fall asleep before the end, the story will keep walking with you. You don't have to listen closely. Just let it settle into your breath. The darkness is quiet, held gently against the rough clay walls. No rooster stirs yet. No carts. Only the old timbers creak with the stretching of night's last sleep. One thin window, cool to the touch, hints at gray, then silver, then the faintest gold, a promise more sense than seen. Shadows lie long across the floor, soft and uncertain, as if the sun hasn't quite made up its mind. The widow is the first to wake, her feet finding the mat, the dirt beneath it pressed smooth by years. For a moment she just listens. The room holds its breath, her breath. There's the faint smell of ashes from last night's coals, still tender in the hearth. She runs her hand along the wall, feeling the bumps, the familiar path from bed to door. She gathers her cloth, the half-mended towel that waits for another day. The air is gentle and close. She wraps her shoulders, pulling her shawl close, and pauses by the jug, earthen and cold. Her youngest still sleeps. Tiny fingers curled, a breath like a small song. She drapes an extra blanket over him, so nothing in this fragile morning chill can startle him awake. No hurry. Not yet. It is an ordinary dawn, and she is grateful for its steadiness. No miracle has come. Not here. There is only the quiet routine, the settling and folding and setting back in its place whatever the night shifted. The oil jar stands on the shelf. Its weight is nearly gone, but she touches it anyway, the way you test if hope remains. Such a small sound, her palm on clay, the softest sigh of longing. Even the oil is silent, moving only when it must. She kneels and shakes out each cloth, dust falls. One cloth at a time she folds, smoothing the wrinkles with her thumbs. A beetle crawls across the stones. She lets it pass. The morning doesn't rush. It stretches, slow and sleepy, across the same patch of floor she's known for years. All the sounds are gentle, her own breath, the faintest echo of yesterday's water pouring, and the whispered snap of fabric in her hands. She waits by the shutter, cracked just enough for a sliver of garden and gray sky. There is dew on the threshold, the smell of earth rising, mixed with yesterday's bread and the distant ash of the hearth. She sits, breathing it in. Every morning is the same, and yet for her none ever is. She whispers her good morning to the empty room, to the jar, to the hush that ties her house together. Even this silence is holy. Even the pause before the day begins is a kind of prayer no one hears but God. She stops to listen. Let this moment stretch, as long as it takes. There's no reason to leave the quiet yet. She just sits, breathing, letting stillness fill the corners the way light someday will. There is nothing to do but wait, for the sun to rise, for a plan to come, for the next quiet step. Here nothing is wasted. Even the hush has weight, and the smallest acts, folding, touching, pausing, feel as though they shape the day. The house is poor, but it feels whole, held together by habit and care. She moves from shelf to shelf, straightening wooden bowls, stacking the crumb-strewn baskets. The feel of rough wood grounds her, reminds her of what's hers. no matter how little it is. She takes a long, slow breath and lets it out, heavy and simple and for no one but herself and God. Outside, the sun inches brighter. Inside, she still waits. The rhythm is steady, safe. Nothing stirs unless she wills it. Sometimes, just sitting in the earliest, most ordinary hours, she feels the nearness of something, not yet named, a peace that passes quietly. And in this moment, she asks for nothing and still feels full. Even if the world is changing, nothing has changed here in these silent beginnings. No one notices. No one needs to. The night listens with her, and the day listens too. Inside the little house, sleep still hangs in the corners. The sun is still slow, rising over rooftops and worn pathstones outside. My hands are already waking, resting on the bag of grain, the same bag, always lighter than the morning before, though you'd hardly notice if you weren't the one weighing it every day. I do this the way my mother did and her mother before her, shaking the grain into the shallow bowl, careful not to spill a single yellow bead. Even the spilling of grain feels personal here. Each kernel is someone's hope quietly waiting. It feels right to start quietly. The millstone sits by the window, rough and old, but it does its work as if nothing else in the world matters. I lift a handful of grain, pour it into the hollow, and set the heavy stone down. The first turn is always slow. My body remembers the pattern, even as my mind drifts, round and round. The sound is soft, stone over stone, grain cracking open, so soft that the silence swells around it, not disturbed but deepened. The grinding never really changes. I lean in, matching the weight, turning the stone with both palms. Some days I sing a little. Not today. Today I breathe deep and let the dust settle over my arms. I turn the stone. I turn it again. It is slow. It is gentle. There is nothing waiting but the flower that comes, grain by grain, whisper by whisper. It's not really work. It's just time moving in circles. A little flower gathers, fine and white. I scoop it out, careful with my hand, careful not to spill. The bowl is quieter now, the air with a hint of grain, a scent that catches in my throat and feels safe. Old, like a memory from childhood, like mornings before the house grew so quiet. Making bread with too little flour is different. You count every scrape. Nothing is wasted. Still, the rhythm is unchanged. I add water cool from the jar as I always do. Sometimes olive oil, just a drop just to soften the dough. Salt when there's some left on the shelf. Tonight, only flour and water. That's enough. It is always enough somehow. God knows how to fill the small with plenty. My hands sink into the bowl, gathering the flour and water together. The sound is quiet, sticky. I press the dough with the heel of my hand, then fold it, then press again. I do this over and over, kneading in circles. It's always the same motion, fold, press, fold, press. My mind drifts elsewhere, to the calmness outside, to the sound of distant voices, to the cool stones beneath bare feet. Fold, press. Even the silence joins in, quietly watching. I knead the dough and let my breathing slow. Each turn is another small prayer no one sees. The dough grows softer, warmer under my hands. I press and the shape changes. I fold and it's smooth again. There is no hurry, just the slow repetition, the steady work. Over and over, as if the rhythm alone could hold a family together. The kitchen smells different, flour turning sweet. I dust more flour on the board, shaking it in a slow, gentle rain. The dough sits patient. I press my palm again. The room listens. Even the old cat curled on the hearth stretches a paw and watches, then returns to his nap. Let this moment stretch. Let each breath be slow. There is time. Sometimes my mind wanders to the stories I heard when I was small, Elijah and the flour that did not run out. Sometimes I wonder if the miracles only happen when you look away, when you keep your eyes on the work. I focus on the dough. This part at least is mine to do. When the dough is ready, I shape it into rounds. Small ones, I press them between both hands gently, turning, smoothing the cracks, patting it quietly into place. Each one nearly the same, though none perfect. I line them up on the cloth, leaving just enough room between each for the dough to breathe. I leave the loaves to rest. In this house, even the bread needs to lie still for a while. The air is warm, still scented with oil from the lamp I just trimmed. Quiet fills the kitchen. It's never truly silent, a creak in the ceiling, a faint bird call outside, the sound of oil stretching into the clay jar somewhere behind me. But these sounds only deepen the calm. Everything moves slowly here. Even the waiting is sacred. Kneading bread is like praying. I never say the words, but I feel them in my hands and in the patient waiting. When you live close to the edge, every gesture matters more. I smooth out a wrinkle in my apron. I dust a smear of flour from the window. I set another jar just so by the hearth, over and over. The fire is slow to wake. I feed it a thin stick of olive wood, then another. Not too fast or the smoke will bite. Not too little or the chill will come back. Patience is the first ingredient. I sit beside the fire. I whisper to it, though no one is there to hear. The flames flick once, twice, and settle. The warmth spreads across the room, soft and kind, like a shawl over tired shoulders. When the dough is ready, I lay each round on a broad, flat stone near the edge of the heat, just close enough to bake, not close enough to burn. The fire glows, keeping its watch. Bread bakes as it always has, slowly, with small blisters rising, a faint crackle, a golden scent filling the house, almost unnoticed unless you wait for it. I sit and wait. Nothing changes, yet everything does. The bread rises. The fire burns low and steady. I rest my forehead on my arms and dream a little. Sometimes my mind slips and I nearly drift away, listening only to my breath and the warmth at my side. The world gets quiet, the worries shrink. I remember even when nothing happens, God is in the small things. Even this silence is holy tonight. Bread is made with slow hands. The jars are lined up, waiting. The oil waits quiet in its jar. The kitchen is steady, simple, and still. Each loaf softens in the warmth, filled by a presence almost too gentle to notice. The miracle is somewhere just outside. Maybe it's waiting for morning, or maybe it's here already, quiet in the repetition. Nothing is wasted. Every motion matters. Fold, press, set the loaves in a row, feed the fire, watch the bread rise. The night listens with you, each breath slows, each heartbeat joins in the rhythm. The world outside is dark, but in here there is light. All that is left is to wait. In quiet, with bread, with hope that always rises as long as the hands keep moving and the heart keeps watch, folded in the hushy morning passed softly over the roofs. I watched her gather her shawl against the chill, feet careful on packed earth, basket in hand, empty at her side. There was nothing hurried in her steps, no reason to draw eyes. One simple woman moving through quiet, sunlit air. She paused where shadows cooled the doorways, knocked gently, and waited for any sign. Nobody seemed surprised to see her, a neighbor at the threshold, asking not for bread but for an empty jar if you have one to spare. I will bring it back. Most homes have extra vessels, tucked near flour bins, behind olive oil jugs, pushed beneath a bench with their mouths angled to catch dust. Each jar held the memory of harvest or rain held safe until wanted. It was nothing to give it up for a day. One by one, fingers offered handles and lids, a quiet shuffle on the ground, then the small weight in her hands. She thanked each person with a wordless nod. Some doors closed gently behind her. Others stayed open, just a crack, scent of stew and sheep's wool drifting into the street. She didn't hurry, just let her arms settle around the jars, each one its own silent promise. Down the lane, the faint scraping of clay on woven baskets. Now and then a child's voice, or the bleat of a goat, moments without much to say. The wind pressed laundry against stone walls. A bird hopped along the fence, unbothered. All this time stretched as if to catch its breath. She took long pauses between every house, rested more than she needed. Each stop let the basket hang heavier, the world giving something with open, empty hands. The street grew quieter as the day unspooled. A few thin clouds drifted past, making space for the sun to pause against old wood and faded linen. When jars became too many for one trip, she left some in the cool shade of home, lined up along the wall like sleeping cats. The rhythm found her: borrow, breathe, carry, let go. The minutes didn't rush. Even this soft labor became its own prayer, unspoken, unnoticed, folded into the hush of ordinary work. All day, nothing changed, and still everything did. The jars waited, holding emptiness, holding hope. No one watched to see a miracle form, only the slow, careful gathering of small, unused things. Nothing broken, nothing wasted. Just vessels, borrowed and returned, lighter and lighter in her arms, heavy with silence. Let each moment open, as wide as a door left ajar. Even the air felt different, as if the house was breathing. Let this quiet fill you, jar by jar, step by step, slow as a heartbeat. The Lord is near to the smallest things, especially when they are empty, especially when they are offered in stillness. The room is quieter now, except for the hush of sandals on hard-packed earth and the newest jar being carried across the threshold. The air is different inside, softer, stiller, shaded from whatever waits outside the door. One by one, each jar finds the floor beside the others. Some taller, some narrow, some with old men's at the handles, their shapes slightly different but somehow right together. When I set the first jar down, the clay sings a low tap against the stone, just a lonely sound filling a quiet space. I breathe out. The next jar arrives, brought gently, cupped in hands that know the weight of bread and water. Its bottom finds its place, and the note it makes is higher, lighter. Another breath steadying, another jar, another space filled. We do not hurry. Each step from the door to the row is drawn out like the slow folding of a blanket at dusk. There is only the nearness of our breaths and the impossibly simple work of putting jars in order. Sometimes my fingertips knock against cool pottery, and the little sound hangs there until breath softens it again. Let this moment stretch. They gather along the floor, not by size, not by age, just by how the room grows wide enough for each. I watch the pattern settling, not quite a straight line, not quite a circle. Sometimes two jars lean a little closer, clinking politely. The space between them feels important, like each quiet space is waiting to be remembered as well. Every corner holds its own hush. The night is not quite here, but we move as if dusk has already arrived. For now, we are just arranging things. Prepare, they say, but no one says how. Each placement is a question and an answer all at once. My hands are dusty now, and the floor is cool through the woven mats. With every jar, a new breath arrives. In, out, another jar. In, out, a pause, listening for anyone else moving, but the quiet remains. Even this silence is holy. There is an order here, though it's one you can't see. It is quiet work not meant for watching. There are no stories being told, just the small, careful business of preparation. In the hush, I notice my own heartbeat. The jars sit, each holding its weighting, each reflecting a little shadow as the daylight shifts away. The night listens with you, even as the last jar finds its place. There is no hurry to move on. The room is not full of people. It is full of space and shape and the steady rhythm of a house agreeing to be ready. Sometimes I forget what comes next. It doesn't matter. There is nothing to do now but breathe. The quiet weight of expectation sits soft atop the jars and the floor and my own shoulders. Nothing gleams, nothing shouts, just a line of ordinary jars waiting together just as we are. Each breath marks the time, let it stretch. Let it rest. The miracle, if it comes, knows how to wait just as we do, and so the house holds its breath. I close my eyes a moment. The jars do not move. I listen. The silence settles in, and my heart slows to match its simple shape. It is still the house, a hush thick enough to rest in, sits around a little table by the wall. The lamplight is mild, almost not enough to see, but the corners are known to her. The widow. It's how she likes it at this hour. She's not waiting. She's just here, breathing with the dust and the twilight, sitting very plain beside the low table and what sits on it, a small bowl. The bowl is nothing special, just clay. No paint. No pattern. Cracks so faint they're only seen when the light tugs at them. Once, long ago, her youngest helped press that clay into shape, a wobbly rim and a thumbprint that never smoothed out. She turns the bowl slowly now, thumb pausing on the soft memory. She holds it quiet and close, feeling the quiet of her own skin warm its side. For a long time she does nothing. Folds of her dress pool at her feet. The house listens alongside her. The rooms beyond are empty but not lonely. They wait too, breathing like folded laundry. She looks down. Oil, not much. Less than a swallow of water, less than the first raindrop sliding off the roof. The oil sits alive in the curve of the bowl. She tilts it. The thinnest line of gold leans into the edge of clay and then back. It doesn't ripple. It only holds its shape, still and unbothered, waiting on someone's hand. The shine is like an eye at rest, closed behind a soft lid. She watches the surface. Nothing moves. The window is cracked, but no wind stirs inside. Not even the flies are bold tonight. She wonders, for just a moment, how something so small can feel like an answer. Who would gather hope in a bowl this size? She lets her finger hover over the oil's gloss, not touching, just seeing if the light stays calm. Minutes swallow themselves quietly. The bowl is heavy, simple. When the lamp shifts, the oil's surface collects orange and silver. one side bright as morning, the other already dreaming of night. She studies the way the edge blurs with the shadow, almost impossible to tell where oil ends and the base begins. It's like looking at the edge of a lake at dusk. No one rushes, nothing stirs, every breath waiting for the first star. Her youngest used to tap the rim 3 times while waiting for bread to cook, once, twice, three. She taps it now, softly, just to see if the memory sounds the same. It does. Even the bowl remembers whose hands formed it. She closes her eyes for a moment, listening to the quiet tap and then to nothing at all. She's supposed to believe in something larger, she thinks, but this moment is so small. It's easy. It's just a bowl, just oil, a blink of provision. Her hopes shrink, matching the shape of what's held out in her palm. The neighbors are gathering jars by the door, but inside everything is slow. She lets this moment stretch, the way you let a sleep-heavy limb find its comfort beneath a thin blanket, loose and full of waiting. The oil shines, but softer now, like water remembering how to become rain. She lifts the bowl, feeling the slight weight, almost forgetting it's heavier than it looks. In the lamp's glow, the oil's surface is smoothly perfect as skin just before a yawn. She tips the bowl a fraction and the surface slides, not quickly but elegantly, a sigh inside clay. All the promises she's waiting for are silent here. No fanfare, no loud miracle. Only the patience of a small bowl waiting to be poured. Even this silence is holy, another breath, and she studies the glazed finish, cloudy in places, scrubbed smooth in others. Every burn mark from old fires, the stains of lentil soup, the trace of a child's hand. The bowl holds so many tiny histories. She wonders if God counts them. She wonders if quiet prayers, whispered while the oil sits waiting, carry into the folds of the clay. The bowl sits again, steady. She sits beside it, neither of them rushing. The lamp flickers a little, and the oil's shine breaks, forming a delicate web on the surface, tiny bridges of light. She watches, letting her mind float across them. Each one a thought, a worry, a bit of longing finding its place on the water. She sets her elbows on the table, chin tucked to chest, and listens to the gentle, slow breath of night pressing down on the house. Let this moment stretch. She hasn't poured the oil yet. That comes soon. But already the room feels gathered somehow. She traces her fingertip alongside the rim, careful not to spill a drop. The oil waits, smooth as velvet. Its stillness is a comfort, like the hush that follows a lullaby, the way sleep slides in, unnoticed, not chased. She breathes, she releases, her heart softens. All beginnings are small, she decides. Even faith grows like this, in secret, in silence, in the steady patience of holding something that seems like not enough. A bowl, a breath, a little light on oil. That's what hope really is. It sits beside you in silence, never asking for more. She looks once more, is there more oil than before? The mind plays tricks in soft darkness. She shrugs. It does not matter. The blessing is in the waiting, in the noticing, in letting the hush fill her bones. The jar is just a jar. The oil is just oil. The miracle, if it wants to come, will slip in quietly. No one will notice except her and maybe God. Even this boredom is sacred, she realizes. The way a bowl sits on a table, waiting. The way oil catches the smallest shimmer, waiting. The way every breath of hers is counted, even here, especially here, where it seems nothing happens. The night listens with you. She listens too, bowl of oil between her palms, still waiting for the first pour or maybe for nothing, just a bit more quiet to fill the hour. The glaze, the shine, the surface, these are enough. It is a small beginning, but even smallness can be holy. Let this moment linger in you, a bowl of oil, a hush of hope, and the peace of being here for now, with more than enough. When the door closed behind us, the world felt smaller and quieter than before. The street's voices faded, pressed out by clay walls. Every step of my mother across the swept floor sounded careful, almost floating bare feet on cool stone, the hush of old dust beneath. The jars waited, rows of them, small, large, each a little different, borrowed from kitchens up and down the lane, passed through hands that had seen so many evenings just like this one. Their surfaces carried marks of cooking and fire, chips from years against the hearth. Most belonged to neighbors my mother had known by day, but tonight in this room they belonged to the promise of oil. The lamp on the table hardly flickered. Only the slow pull of breath, the faint shift of robes against legs, and the closeness of waiting. Let this moment stretch. She lifted the jar that held our last oil, her hands wrapped around it steady. The shape was familiar, she had poured from it every morning, every evening. Only now there was no hurrying, no other voices, just breathing, just the slow song of what comes next. She tipped the jar, and silence deepened. A thin stream, soft as a feather, slipped out and touched the bottom of a waiting bowl. The sound was gentle, hollow, and small. Not quite a trickle, not quite a patter. A private conversation between oil and clay. Nothing else moved. The first bowl filled slowly. The oil did not gulp, did not splash, only gathered, and when she straightened the jar, the silence returned heavier than before. Let even this silence be holy. She set the full bowl beside the others and reached for the next vessel. Every movement became a kind of slow circle. Each object in the room looked on as if it, too, remembered waiting for something steady and good. Again the pour. This time the stream fell a little faster, yet it sounded the same, a careful, patient hush, like rain on clay tiles in the night. My heart matched its pace, slow, easy, smooth. Between each pour there was only stillness. The pause lingered, let our bodies settle. My brother watched, silent, his feet tucked close beneath the bench. No one asked why or how or what came next, just the quiet repeat of oil meeting clay. One bowl, then another, then another. The room filled only with the sound of pouring. The house outside grew distant, as though we lived in a world of jars and nothing more. The night listens with you. If a droplet landed on the rim, it did not complain. It slid down, found its place. The surface of each vessel shined with newness, gold even in the dull glow. We no longer thought about running out. We no longer thought about what began this night. Only the weight in the bowls, the lightness in our chests. My mother's face was quiet. She did not rush. She did not fret. The oil never faltered. Her movements found a rhythm: tip, pour, fill, pause, tip, pour, fill, pause. My brother and I set the filled bowls gently aside, careful not to clink them. Our breathing matched the pace, unhurried. Let this moment settle into your breath. Sometimes the softest sound was my mother's hand brushing the lip of a jar, checking for chips or cracks. Other times it was the oil, waiting in the neck, thick and patient. Again she poured. We ran out of words early. No need for voices. The pouring itself was a lullaby, soft, repetitive, safe. Clay against wood, oil on clay, hands wrapped around warmth, surfaces growing heavier by fragments. The quiet grew deeper and more certain. The world outside the house slipped away, and only the simple music of pouring remained. It filled the room, filled our hearts, and nothing hurried it along. Even the air seemed to wait, as if oil might fill every corner before morning. Let your body relax. As slowly as oil gathers in a new bowl, the jars stood like witnesses, watching blessing accumulate in silence. No one noticed the miracle. It shaped itself eventually in the soft, repeated gesture, and we let it happen. We let every sound be enough. We let the night stretch out, thin and golden as the oil itself. In the hush, I thought perhaps this is what faith feels like, not a shout, just the slow filling of empty things. So slight, you'd miss it if you listened only for thunder. We kept pouring. There was always another jar, another moment, another pause. Each time the same hush, the same careful handling, the same graceful pour. The lamp grew dimmer. My eyelids felt heavy, but the sound of oil and clay played gently just beneath waking. The house felt weightless. We stayed wrapped in the peace of pouring, the quiet miracle repeating until we forgot when it had started. Nothing urgent, nothing loud, only the holy boredom of blessing. Let this quiet repetition cradle you. Sleep is here, as close as a hand resting on a jar. God walks quietly sometimes, disguised as the slow pour of oil in an ordinary home at night. It's easy to overlook a pair of hands. There are so many in the world, busy hands in markets, gentle hands pouring water, old hands mending seams in the shadow of a doorway. Her hands were ordinary, too, cracked from scrubbing the bowls each morning, and careful, like she was always measuring out just enough hope for one more day. Tonight, I remember her fingers just there, steady near the rim of a clay jar. Not shaking, just slow, like dusk closing over a quiet room. The lines in her knuckles traced years of work, kneading, lifting, tying knots in thread. When the sun was harsh, she would rub olive oil into her palms before setting out bread for the children, her hands working, always, without anyone noticing their silent faith. That evening, after she'd swept the dirt from under the table and stacked the wooden bowls, she sat for a while. Her hands curved around her legs, making a cradle for her own tiredness. Breathe in, notice your hands. Let the tension loosen in your fingers. The room was all hush, except for the shifting of her breath, slow in, slow out as she counted out the empty jars, just as Elisha had asked. She turned them over, one by one, checking for cracks, brushing away a smudge, straightening the line. Her hands had never been the center of a miracle. They belonged to chopping onions, folding tunics, wiping tears from a cheek, and holding a child steady when the world felt uncertain. Now, in the fading light, they did this new task with the same slow, honest care, no different from any other evening. Sometimes she paused, and her thumb circled the rim of a jar as if she was listening for something inside. Not a voice, not a promise, just the quiet weight of trust. Even the simplest gestures held the steadiness of faith, unremarkable from the outside. You might have known hands like these. Maybe your own hands have learned patience, too. Breathe out. Let your hands rest where they are. There is nothing you must hold onto. The night is long, and peace comes in small, plain moments. When the oil jug was lifted, her grip stayed gentle. She tipped it, and the thin stream made a soft, steady sound against the clay jar. Her wrists did not hurry. Each jar waited with open mouth, and her hands guided the flow slow and even as though the oil and her faith were one and the same. She did not whisper prayers aloud, but her hands prayed with every careful pour. In the hush, the air itself seemed to pause. There were no crowds, no witnesses, just the small weight of the miracle resting quietly in the middle of daily life. She would set a filled jar aside, touch the handle with her palm, let her arms rest in her lap for a moment. This was how peace arrived, not with noise or light, but with hands doing what they always do, one thing at a time. You might notice the soft ache in your own hands even now. Let them grow heavy. Unclench your fingers. Trust the night to hold all that you carried today. The world is quieter than it seems. The jars lined up, one after the other, catching the light from a small lamp in the corner. She tended them as she would tend anything precious, quietly, without hurry. It's a plain sort of holiness, hands busy but spirit still. No one wrote poems about what her hands did, but perhaps that was the miracle too, just the daily faith of doing things gently and letting go. That's enough for now. Rest your hands. Let them be empty and blessed. The night listens when you do. The oil lamp burned low on the table, its light a small, steady glow. The night pressed quietly at the window. You could hear almost nothing, except for the softest breaths, ragged, small, but calm. In the long hush of that evening, the children waited. No one asked them to be still. They just found their places on the edge of woven mats, feet tucked under, hands resting on knees. They were children, but the room asked for quiet, and so they gave what silence they could. Their mother moved between jars. She gathered them earlier, with a sigh in her shoulder, one at a time, from neighbors and cousins and the woman down the lane who never returned your bowl empty. Each jar came with its own sound. Some clinked softly, pottery meeting pottery. Some scraped as they settled on stone. The children listened, their eyes following her hands, their bodies held by the long, slow pause between everything. Let this moment stretch. A cousin wriggled but didn't speak. Someone's nose ran, and the scrape of a sleeve was loud in the dull hush. Oil moved in a single jug, a deep, round jar with no paint, only fingerprints that never washed away. The mother lifted it. Her hands shook a little, but the oil was slow, patient. It didn't rush. She tilted and waited. The first jar gurgled. A new sound joined the quiet, almost musical, only softer. The children leaned forward but didn't breathe too loud. If you watched them, you'd see their eyes most of all wide but gentle, like when they watch sparrows landing in the yard or dough rising beneath a cloth. Nobody asked for a story. Nobody laughed. It was just the oil and the mother and the jars that gathered between them. Even this silence is holy. The oil found its place, pooling at the bottom, clear in the flicker of the lamp. When the mother reached for the next jar, each child could see her breath, slow and careful. They watched her pour, then settle the jar beside the last. They knew this rhythm, the waiting and filling and placing and waiting again. It was almost like watching bread bake or old clothes mend, or the moon pull away from the hill, slower than you could see but endless in its promise. Not every child felt the same thing. Some wondered how much longer. Some blinked away sleep with heavy lids. Some counted the jars under their breath as whispers so quiet nobody noticed. No miracles shouted. There was no gold. Only oil, thicker than water, slower than milk, finding a home in jar after jar. The night listens with you now and then. A child shifted, knees creaking on mat. Someone's finger pressed the rim of a finished jar, tracing dust, but none asked questions, not out loud. Faith for them was in the watching, the steady eyes, the quiet bodies, the slow trust that something ordinary was enough. Their mother moved carefully, not looking at them but always aware. Maybe she knew their faith was not thunder or light but waiting in silence, trusting what the hands could not make for themselves. The oil was small, but the jars were patient. So were the children. Let this moment stretch. Shadows changed on the mud-brick wall. Outside, a dog yawned. Someone far off set out water for goats. The world still moved. It never stopped. But inside their house, the movement came small. Oil into jar, hand onto stone, breath into silence. The hush grew warmer, like an old quilt left out in sun, and the children leaned into it, letting their eyes grow heavy, their breathing slow. They had chores in the morning, water to carry, bread to fetch, sweepings of dust in corners, sandals to straighten by the door. But for now there was only watching. Even this silence is holy. The lamp light softened. The jars gathered close, a little crowd of patience and clay. The oil resting gentle. The mother tired but steady. No one said thank you. No one claimed surprise. They just watched as oil filled jar by jar by jar until there were no more. And every child, quiet-eyed, trusted what their bodies already knew, that enough could come, even in the stillness, that holy things might slip in while we are not looking, as easily as sleep. The last sound was the setting of the jug, deep and final. The children did not cheer. Tomorrow they would remember this as ordinary, a night of watching, a night when nothing terrible happened and nothing extravagant either. Sometimes the most faithful thing is not asking at all, just watching the oil. Let this moment stretch. The afternoon waited on the other side of the window, not in a rush. Sunlight drew itself thin and wide, then pulled back, slow and soft, as the house grew quieter. Once I thought light came only in a moment, but now, sitting beside these empty jars, I see it's gentle and steady, drifting across the room, not trying to be seen. It slips over the floor, touches each jug, finds specks of dust in the folds of the blanket tucked by the door. My hands are busy with a dish, slow circles rinsing and drying and stacking. Just outside, the fig tree listens to the wind. Inside, the sun keeps moving, not in beams or golden rays, but in the quiet turn of a shadow. I watch it crawl over the nearest jar, then settle there like something patient or kind. No one makes a sound. I move one jar just a little to catch whatever warmth is left. Shadows drift across my toes and up the side of the clay. They lean in slow and soft, like someone placing a light blanket over my legs as I sit. When the oil was poured earlier, I remember how the light wrapped around my shoulders then too. Now the room is even sleepier, heavy with the waiting stillness. Sometimes the shadows fold in so thick I almost forget the sun's still there. But then a soft glow slips over my fingers, reminding me nothing's truly empty, not while sunlight finds its way inside. I follow the play of light and dark without moving much, watching shadows stretch, shrinking away as the afternoon turns. The room feels bigger every time the shade shifts, a quiet stretching, gentle and polite. A bowl clinks. I set it down. Between each quiet clatter, the sunlight drifts, curling around the legs of each jar, tucking itself along the rim. It feels like the room is being covered, bit by bit, in layers as light as breath. the air takes on a golden hush, like everything has settled down for a nap. My eyes feel slow, even my thoughts drowse. Shadows cover the jars, one by one, careful as hands folding cloth. There is nothing urgent here, just the slow movement of time and sunlight, the gentle work of shadows holding you steady. Let this moment stretch a little longer. Let the drifting shadow be a blanket covering you too. Even this silence is holy. The jars are quiet. The oil is quiet. Even my own breathing slips into the rhythm of the changing light. Sunlight is a guest, a silent participant, blessing ordinary things by simply being there. And the day before it's done still shares what warmth it has, spreading it over the room, over me, over you. The night listens with you. Shadows gather and fold, soft and sure, something to rest beneath. Nothing more to do, just being in the hush. The sun slips away, gentle as a sigh. The table was just a low stone in the corner, cold, solid, and waiting. Someone had brushed the dust from its surface with a careful hand, over and over. The sun had slipped low, turning everything to quiet gold. No one hurried. Baskets waited in the shadow. Bread wrapped in linen and a small pile of figs, soft with sweetness, patient to be picked up. Hands moved gently, setting the meal in place. Again the cloth folded back. Again the round loaf revealed, plain and small, but more than enough. The crust cracked beneath the fingers, the sound quiet, the action familiar. Again and again, bread broke between soft palms. The pieces passed from hand to hand, circle to circle, as if there would always be more. No one talked much. Inside the hush, the world fell slower. Just the sound of chewing, slow, patient. Chewing and the soft sigh of air through the small room. The figs tasted of summer, cool and sticky on the tongue. A simple meal, no ceremony, no rush. A jug of water stood in the corner, catching the last of the light. One by one, each person poured. The water met the clay cup. The cup lifted, sipping, swallowing. Water touched the lips, the quietest sound. Then again. Another cup, another mouth, old and young, each just the same. Sipping, swallowing, nothing changed. And everything did. Bread breaks again and again. Soft, deliberate, nothing wasted. Crumbs brushed from a lap. Every move a kind of remembering the day behind, the blessing inside every ordinary bite. Each piece of bread passed, a whisper of care in the smallness of hunger, never spoken aloud but felt like a hush beneath the roof while the daylight faded. Let this moment stretch, just chewing, just breathing. The world waits outside, but here the meal holds the whole house together. Sometimes a laugh slips out, quiet, almost shy. Oil glimmers on a finger, sticky from the figs again and again. The food is not special, and that makes it sacred. Bread, figs, water, passed and eaten and poured in the slowest way. The body remembers, and the silence wraps around every swallow, every sigh, every slow refill of the cup. Even this silence is holy. The meal, the evening, the plainest food, everything echoes with gentle provision. No one is named. No one fusses. He asked for nothing and still felt full. She chews her bite for a long time and finds she's grateful, with nothing left to ask for. Bread breaks again. Water finds thirsty lips again. Figs press sweetly between teeth, then gone. Each action is repeated, the rhythm familiar, safe. The sound of eating, the soft scrape of the cup, everything small, everything good. Let your eyes get heavy now. Let your own breath match the hush of this meal. In this room, food is passed and the night is gentle, and no one worries what will happen next. Rest in the ordinary. The table, the bread, the figs again and again and again. The house sits quiet now. The oil jars have stopped moving. Their mouths are closed, the last thin line of oil settled at the rim, no rush, no excitement left inside this room. Only the gentle echo of what was, blending quietly into what is. The sun has slid from the window, leaving a soft, blue glow on each jar's shoulder. Everything you could hear is inside the house, the small tick of cooling walls, the hum of sleep beginning at the edge of the city. A cloak is folded over a chair. The floor is swept, but not perfectly. A corner is missed, and that's all right. Nobody will notice tonight, and the dust will wait for morning. In the pause after fullness, even the waiting feels like devotion. The woman sits with her hands at rest in her lap, palms open, as if catching what's left of the day, a slow, harmless little sigh. Breath moves through the room like water, quiet and steady. Oil and light are both still, tucked in for the night. She smooths the linen on the bed, careful not to hurry. Each movement is slow, partly from tiredness, partly from needing the stillness to go on just a little longer. Her hands learn the edges of the cloth, the fold, the lift, the soft pat down, over and over just to feel calm take its place. A cool breeze finds the open window. It slides along the jars, across her bare ankles, into the soft folds of the cover where she will soon lie down. She closes her eyes for a moment, letting her chest rise and fall. One slow breath, then another. Let this moment stretch. Even the little gaps between thoughts are quiet prayers tonight. She nearly forgets that just an hour ago, the house was full of movement. Now there's nothing to do but be here, side by side with emptiness, which is not a sad thing. Just a kind of waiting, softer than anything that's finished. Night carries in the smell of olives and warm stones. The world outside is not asleep yet, but she is, or close to it. She runs a hand along the windowsill, feeling the cool powder left by the earth. Once a lizard hid here in the afternoon. Now only her finger traces the outline, up and down in no hurry. There's nothing left that demands attention. Not tonight. One jar slightly chipped at the rim catches her eye. She leans forward, thumb brushing the flaw, and smiles without meaning to. This jar isn't perfect. It didn't need to be. The oil still filled it. All the jars did their part, standing still, holding whatever was poured. She whispers a line inside her chest. Thank you for small things and the spaces between them. Her son's breathing, slow and muffled behind a curtain. It anchors her. Not every prayer needs words. Sometimes sleep does the talking for you. She kneels by the bed, folding the last piece of linen. It was her late husband's. The fabric has softened with years. She presses it to her cheek for a moment, the faded scent of soap and sun-warmed air. Another slow breath. No tears tonight, just the hush that follows when you've done all that you could do. A sliver of moon floats above the courtyard. She watches it, waiting for nothing in particular. Just the shape of it, gentle and ordinary. Her thumb rubs a circle on the linen, smoothing a wrinkle. Over, then over again. She whispers, barely above breath, Lord, let your kindness fill the quiet places too. Stillness feels like a long lull between heartbeats. She is empty but not lacking. The jars would agree if they could. Their usefulness is not in movement, but in what they hold even while standing still. She steps to each jar, one by one. Her hand rests on the shoulder, a silent thank you. Nothing needs to be said aloud, but she lingers anyway, letting her presence be the prayer. If anyone saw her, it would look like she was simply lost in thought, but she knows she is being kept. The room, the stillness, the jars, her own quiet body, all held, all known. The house settles deeper into night. Street sounds fade outside, one by one, a cart rolling by, a goat shifting against its tether. The world outside can be busy with its wishes. Here in the pause it is enough simply to be, to breathe in and breathe out. No alarms, no needs unmet, just this ordinary grace stretching on second by second. She sits at the foot of her bed. Her toes curl under the edge of threadbare wool. One final glance at the jars, lined up, unhurried, wholly without trying. She pulls her blanket close and lets her shoulders relax, feeling the relief of belonging right where she is. She whispers, as if speaking to the darkness, "Thank you for tonight. Thank you for what's full and what's empty. Thank you for a little peace. Thank you that I don't have to fill every silence. Thank you for holding us when nothing is happening at all." A chill runs through the floor, cool and grounding. Her eyelids grow heavy. The jars gleam a little as the moonlight shifts, but mostly they are plain, waiting quietly for someone to notice them, but needing nothing at all. Like her, like this room, like these long, uneventful hours that still feel like provision. She settles under her blanket. Her last breath before sleep is slow, patient. She feels the quiet words pulse through her chest, silent as a prayer. "Stillness holds me. The Lord knows my breath. I am not forgotten. God walks slowly too. Grace is here. Amen, amen, amen." The door closed behind her as quietly as a long sigh. She paused by the step, holding her breath, watching a thin line of dust drift on sunlight. Her sandals pressed into the earth, and she could feel the pebbles beneath. A small, steady discomfort, never changing, mostly ignored. She began to walk. With each step a soft scrape, the hush of leather brushing dust, another foot, then the next. Not in a hurry, not thinking much beyond the next patch of ground. The road was wider than her doorway, but quieter than her kitchen. The rhythm began to settle, step, 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 the sound of breathing, slow and regular, like filling a jar slowly, drop by drop. No one watched her, not really. Strangers in the fields looked up and nodded, but mostly the road was her own, a line of worn earth to the small market, where jars might wait stacked like hopes, empty and ordinary. She thought about jars as she walked, about their shapes, the flat bottoms, the glaze of old clay. Some were wide-mouthed, some narrow, some sat crooked. She wondered if any would leak. As she walked, her mind stayed on jars, but her heart knelt quietly beside each step, as if every footfall was a question. Every answer came in the silence. The dust rose as she moved, catching the sunlight, swirling for a moment before settling. She walked through it all, her own footsteps behind her, easy to forget. Nothing needed to be said. On the road, her world became small, 2 feet, warm ground, steady arms, one empty jug at her hip. Every so often, she would let her eyes wander, past the dry weeds, toward a cluster of distant sheep, someone's voice calling after a child, a bird flashing across the still, blue sky. But mostly her attention stayed close, just above the dust, where her steps made a soft, steady song. She counted nothing, no worries about how many jars she would find or whether the neighbors would lend. Walking was enough for now. She breathed in the warm air. She breathed out slow, silent. She matched her feet to the beat of her own breath. Step, step, in, out, letting the space grow between every movement. If she remembered a prayer, it wasn't with words, just the quiet asking that lives somewhere between exhaling and hoping. Once or twice, a neighbor's cart rattled by, wheels creaking over stones. She stepped aside, nodding, feeling small, unseen. The walk remained her own. Each step became a way to let go, to remember she was here, and that her need itself was known, even if unspoken. The sandals grew warmer with every stride, and the dust gathered along her hem. She thought of the marks her feet left, a simple trail, easy to sweep away, but real enough for now. With every few steps, the market drew a breath closer, rounding the far curve where the road fell into shadow. She let her eyes trace the branches overhead, leaves trembling, letting light flicker across her shoulders. The hush was deep enough to hear her own breath, deep enough to notice the steady patter of her heart, soft and sure. Sometimes walking is all that's asked, not arriving, not receiving, just the tired, hopeful rhythm of moving forward, one foot in front of another. Letting the world be nothing more demanding than dust, sandals, sun, and slow provision hidden in the ordinary. And so she walked, the widow, the road, the sound of breath, the small prayer of survival. The jars waited somewhere ahead. Her feet for now moved the story forward, each step its own quiet yes, each space between a prayer all its own. Let this moment stretch, let walking be enough, even the silence tonight is holy. Sometimes in the afternoons, the market's voice would drift through our shutters, nobody's words clear, just the sound of all words together, softened like a woven blanket, a steady, gathered hum. That day, while I wiped down the last borrowed jar, my fingers running over its lip, chipped from someone else's hungry season, I listened to the far-off bartering spill into our house. It wasn't ever sharp, more like the hush you hear when cupping your ear against a cool stone wall, layered and distant. I set the jar near the door, beside a basket of onions and two small loaves. There was no hurry. In homes like ours, time moved like thick honey, especially after the morning's work, before the lamps were lit, and long before a miracle could ever be suspected. I pressed the heel of my hand into a crease in my apron, feeling the quiet settle in, while the sound of the market brushed past like a shawl, never touching, just close. Sometimes you caught signs of laughter tucked inside that hum, though the words blurred together. Coins, maybe, chimed against pottery. I couldn't say which neighbor's voice belonged to whom, not from here. The market had a way of gathering every life into itself until it was only a gentle tide, moving in and out against the walls of our street. My mother stepped carefully around the jars, her hands sticky with flour. She glanced to the courtyard as if listening for an answer sharper than noise. But it wasn't in our windows or in the market. Not now. One of the children stirred, dragging a clay penny across the dirt. The sound it made was lost. The only thing steady was the market's low, muffled song. Let every soft sound be enough. The kettle against the stone, the sigh of sandals at the door. Even the market, with its dreams of figs and grain, folded inwards until nothing was speaking, really, just the pattern of a city breathing out. I washed my hands in cold water, watching little circles ripple away. Far off, the bartering rose and fell, quieter than a prayer, steadier than sleep. Let this moment stretch. Let your ribs loosen. Even silence is holy. We never worried standing there. We let the market argue and dicker through the air, faint as the memory of rain. I lined the jars up in a slow, uneven row, letting my fingers rest a moment longer on each rough surface. Some had come from old friends, some from neighbors I barely knew. Some, I thought, had a piece of another story at their base, a scratch, a chip, a bit of blue paint, too faint to matter but present. Someone outside called another's name. I caught only the shape of it, rounded and softened by distance, not the meaning. It passed through the gap between jars and windowsill, blending into the gentle, humming current. Mother covered her headscarf, smiling to herself, not for any reason, just because the afternoon gave you that. She set lentils on to cook, each tiny stone landing in the pot with a tiny, hidden tap. I breathed slow and thick, letting each of the market's voices pass through me, in one ear out the other, like a tame river slipping around rock. The world was full but not pressing. God walked slowly here. The oil sat where it always had, untouched yet beside a folded cloth. I watched Mother fold the cloth again and again, as if smoothing out worry before it arrived. Nothing hurried. My own hands went to the last jar, feeling for cracks, wondering if I'd missed any sharp edge. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Our neighbor's feet scraped along stones outside, too soft to wake anyone. The market's song dipped again, quieter now, the day bending toward dusk. I leaned my cheek against the cool side of the nearest jar, just for a moment, safe inside shadows and the steady hush that lived here. The city's heartbeat, if you listened, sounded just like this. Never sharp, always folding back on itself, always enough. The children, mine, hers, ours, sat together near the hearth, playing a game of stones. Each clink was wrapped in the market's blanket, so faint it barely existed. I closed my eyes just a blink, letting the muddled talk outside lull me deeper into stillness. Even the goats held back their bleating, waiting for the evening's peace. I heard the distant clatter of a bread knife somewhere further down the row of houses, echoing just once, muffled by windows and bread dough and the sleepy market hum. The air tasted of yeast and warm dust. As my hands finished sorting the jars, one after another, marked by prints and small forgotten cuts, I tried to listen a little deeper, underneath the market noise. There was something else, softer. The kind of rest that asks for nothing, that expects nothing. The marketplace could rise or fall, prices could shift, but here, enclosed by the gentle noise of provision, I could finally let go, just breathing, just here. Let this quiet carry you. The market will keep singing tomorrow. Tonight these sounds, these blurred, easy voices, are enough to keep watch while you rest. Let them settle into your bones, into the weight of your blanket. Let the stillness hold you. The Lord knows your breath. You are not forgotten. Breathing beside borrowed jars in a house unnoticed by history, surrounded by the softest song a city can make, you are safe. Grace is here. The night listens with you, amen. The road home is not far, but tonight it feels softer than before. Each step is slow, like a gentle yawn after a long day. The sky, fading from blue to lavender, rests behind the roofs and olive branches. The air smells quiet, worn smooth by many evenings just like this. Nothing hurries. Her arms aren't empty, not really. She carries fewer jars now, their weight changed. Not full of oil anymore, but holding something unseen, provision, maybe, or a story whispered between shadows. Sometimes faith feels like lifting the same jars as yesterday, only lighter. She listens for her own footsteps. They sound steady on the dirt, soft in her sandals. To her left, a sleepy dog stretches and settles again, not concerned by miracles, just content with the last patch of sunlight. Across the lane, an old neighbor sweeps dust away from a doorway, her broom moving as slowly as the widow's heart. Everyone here is tending to the business of evening, doing what needs to be done. Nothing more, nothing less. The jars shift against her hips. They tap together, soft, hollow, a quiet music for the walk. She remembers lining them up in her house, one after another, filling each as carefully as folding a linen for the Sabbath. Every surface in her home had a purpose for a night, a table for the smallest jar, a bench for the tallest, even a doorway kept watch by an empty bowl waiting to be filled. It wasn't noisy. Her sons learned to whisper. Now, dusk drapes everything in a longer light, gold slipping toward gray, wrapping the alleyways in slow-moving peace. The weight on her shoulders feels easier, but her heart is wide awake, that gentle, grateful ache of returning home with just enough. Maybe more than enough. She pauses near a fig tree, not for the fruit, she is not hungry, but because the light gently leans here, stretching in tall, drowsy bands through the leaves and onto the dust. The world slows. This is what quiet comfort feels like, pausing when no one is watching, breathing out the day in a silent, unworried way. Sometimes the greatest kindness is not needing to hurry. She lets the jars settle at her feet for a moment. An ant explores the edge of a handle. Far off, someone calls a child to wash before supper. The village is still awake, but softer somehow, softer because there is enough. She kneels to rearrange the jars, tracing each rim with her thumb, the clay still warm from holding oil. Every mark, every scratch tells a small story, some borrowed, some hers. This moment is ordinary. Miracles happened quietly, and now the jars just wait for tomorrow, for bread, for laughter, for the next need to be met. For now, it is enough simply to be here, hands resting on the smooth, empty surfaces. A breeze begins to sigh along the path. She lifts the jars again, each one a little lighter than she remembers. Twilight follows her steps. It tucks itself into her elbow and spills gold across her way. She does not rush. The road leads home always, and tonight there is time. Because God walks slowly, she thinks. Provision arrives in the small, slow moments, not always as oil, but as a quietness that will last even through the dark. With each step, gratitude settles deeper than any jar. She walks quietly on. The night listens. It's nearly evening again. This house is always quieter as the sun leans soft across the walls, shadows rising along the floor that I once washed clean for guests who no longer come. I stand at the threshold, broom in hand, and the world holds its breath with me. Dry gray dust hugs the edge of the stone, clinging in little waves where sandals shuffled through. The air is still. I begin to sweep, slow as the day has become. One gentle stroke after another, broom's bristles whispering against the stones. Not a sound, but that soft, regular, like a heartbeat carried outside the rooms. Dust lifts gently, floating, then falls again. For a moment I watch a sunbeam dance in those tiny motes. There's something peaceful in seeing what drifts up, then settles back down. I sweep the dust forward, not in a hurry, never forcing it, just giving it someplace new to be. Each sweep feels like a breath, in, out, dust moving on, not vanishing. There is always a little more than expected. The motion is steady, thoughtful. Hands repeating work handed down from others before me. Older hands maybe made this same motion before they cooked bread, before they welcomed children inside. No one is coming tonight, but the stones still need care. The doorway matters, even if only I see it. I sweep the sill, corners, the rough lines where the wall meets the ground. It doesn't gleam afterward, but for a while it feels noticed, chosen. My mind wanders, thinking of things I could say aloud, prayers soft enough to be mistaken for sighs. But it's not a time for speaking, just paying attention, letting the smallness of this work be enough. Outside, a neighbor's kettle is tapping and there's birdsong in the distance. Still, nothing interrupts the gentle scrape, scrape, scrape of the broom. It's a lullaby if the heart is quiet enough. The broom feels light, the task simple. There's room to breathe here, room for God to be listening if He wants while I sweep without words. The sun dips lower, golden to pink. The line of swept dust grows slow, like a river changing course after the rain. I move with it, easy, letting the minutes drift past. After a while, both hands remember every movement on their own. The body knows what's needed. The mind unspools gently. There's nothing more urgent than this, keeping my little threshold open and clear. I could let someone else do it, but then I might miss these steady moments, the way dust falls, the feeling of small good work, holiness in what's barely noticed. Each time I sweep, I think, maybe something invisible moves with the dust, worry or sorrow or just the day's heaviness. I let them drift, settle, become part of the quiet ground. The world is unchanged. Still, I step back, look at clean stone, breathe. The house feels ready for something, though I'm not sure what. Another day ending, a threshold cleared. Nothing special, but it matters. I lean the broom against the wall, fingers resting where the handle is worn smooth. The house is still. Even the dust rests now. Let this be enough. There is quiet work in every corner of this house. When the sun begins to dim and the pots have all found their places, my hands return to the last, most ordinary task. The cloth waits for me, slung across the bench, folded over the chair, draped in calm heaps. I do not hurry here. Let the day drift slower now. Even the world outside seems to fold into itself all at once like heavy linen. I take a tunic first. It is cool from the shade. My fingers smooth its shoulder, wondering how many times I have watched oil and flour darken its edge. I pinch a corner gently, as if waking it from sleep, and bring each side together. An old rhythm finds me. Fold, breathe, fold, stack, each cloth remembers. This one, soft with age, has caught crumbs, carried olives, dried tears. Its threads hold the scent of bread and the faint dust of 100 evenings. The next is coarse, simple, stiff at first pinch, but loosening as it bends to my hands. I run my palm over its wrinkles. They settle into wide lines, restful as quiet roads at dawn. I keep building the pile. The weight grows, but it is a soft weight, not a burden, more like a hush. Here in the hush, every crease and crumple feels like a story left unfinished, but safe, not needing an end tonight. I watch my son, turning small square cloths in clumsy, careful hands. He makes a mess of corners, but each one settles somehow, obedient to touch. He grins at his tiny stack, proud as one with much treasure. I tell him, "Go slow. Let the cloth sink into itself." He nods, pressing a fold firm and gentle. We stack together, his on mine, light on heavy. The pile leans for a moment, then finds its balance. There is peace here. Cloth on cloth, color with color, no hurry or lack. The baskets are empty now. All the ragged edges lean against the next, finding their shape by patience alone. Evening settles around us like another layer, a soft cloak for the house. The world becomes smaller, gentle, stitched together by little acts of care. Folding cloth is a silent kind of prayer. The words are in my breath, in the rise and fall of fabric, in the letting go of wrinkles I cannot smooth. I think of the oil still glimmering in its jar, of blessing poured and gathered just enough. Like cloth, it stretches, fills the spaces left open, soaks in quietness until nothing is missing. Stack by stack, the pile rises, calm as a resting chest. The cloth waits for nothing more. The weight on my lap, heavy but good, reminds me, not everything is meant for action. Some things are just held, waited for, trusted. I think sometimes of how the jars and the cloths are the same, ordinary until needed, blessed not by their worth but by how gently they are gathered. When I fold the last piece and lay it on the stack, I do not need to say any words. Heaven, I think, notices every small completion, every soft ending. For now the basket is full, the room is still. My hands rest upon the heavy fold of linen, and I know sleep comes to those who witness the day, who honor each small burden, who press wrinkles down and call it peace. Let the night hold this soft weight, sacred boredom, the quiet blessing of folded cloth. The last chores ended quietly tonight. Someone swept the corner. Someone else laid a cloth over the basket by the door. The pots where the oil was poured, one by one, through the long, strange day, rested empty and clean, stacked where morning light will find them. No one says much. The boys are someplace nearby, murmuring softly. I settle where I can watch the table, where old bread sits, safer than before. A lamp is set upon the shelf. It's nothing special. It's clay dark with thumbprints and smoothed by everyday use. A little oil, just enough, is poured inside. I do not wonder where it came from. It is here. The wick floats, waiting. Dusk has gathered, gentle and gray, wrapping the doorway and pushing the corners into shadow. Someone strikes a spark, careful and unworried. We all watch the wick catch. The flame rises, not full grown but learning its shape, small, steady, like a question without an answer. It stirs the dark but not too much. Every deep breath shares the lamp's hush. The glow touches the bowl of lentils, the soft sleeve of the youngest one's tunic. The shadows press in but do not ask for more. The light knows its work, a small companion, not a crowd. I fold cloth nearby, smoothing edges, hands slowing with every crease. The soft crackle of linen, the faint tick of the lamp's clay, the oil scent. It is all quiet, every detail winnowed down, until the only thing left is the rhythm between the shadows and the glow. No one hurries. No reason moves us on. The flame flickers, slow as breath, stretching, then sinking. It doesn't dance for anyone's delight, yet we watch as if it might. This is how the room finds rest. With something warm and bright, not too proud, burning just long enough. The children drift closer, silent, leaning into the hush. Their feet curl under. Maybe someone whispers a line of song, but it's more like a memory than a tune. Nothing interrupts. The lamp's heartbeat holds the lull of evening. Outside, a dog lies down in the dust. Distant voices. Olive branches shiver once, then stand still. The world grows simple. Bread, oil, lamp, shadow, enough for tonight. I remember seeing miracles from just beyond the doorway. Tonight I notice nothing new except how the light lasts and how all of us are gathered by its warmth. I wonder what God sees looking on. Maybe just this, just us, breathing slowly in the soft reach of lamplight. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Let this moment stretch, let every darkness hold. We sleep, and the lamp keeps company, flickering low, slow as the quietest hope. Somewhere outside, a sandal brushes the dirt. Soft, steady steps. The sound drifts closer, then fades, as if refusing to trouble the stillness inside this house. The voices of neighbors wander past, not loud enough to catch a word, only a muffled ripple stitched into the linen of the evening air. Sometimes they pause, maybe setting down a basket, maybe calling a child, but their voices never rise. They do not peer in. They do not knock. They simply keep moving, with baskets and ropes and gentle laughter, their words slipping into the dusk, thinner and thinner with every step away. Inside it is quiet. The jars wait, some heavy now, some untouched, some hopeful. Only the smallest things fill the space. The brush of a sleeve against clay, the hush when a hand steadies the lip of an empty vessel, the exhale that comes after pouring. Nothing interrupts. Nothing is needed. Sometimes the world gives a sign that life keeps on. A broom sweeps at a distant doorstep, a dog turns in dusty circles, a shutter flaps loose and is caught by a gentle hand. All these ordinary things move around the walls as if the whole neighborhood has agreed to pass gently. No rush, no alarm. Their going is as soft as their coming. The light outside settles, gold folding slowly into gray. Somewhere a gate creaks open. Bread is carried home. A small child hums out of tune, following a mother's skirt. At the window you might hear a fig drop quietly from the tree. Footsteps return, then turn away. The familiar pattern, their predictability becomes a kind of comfort. You know who goes to collect water, who lingers by the old well, whose cough is sharp, whose laughter is warm. They belong to the weave of the street. Tonight they simply pass and let be. Nothing has changed, except the slow, invisible kindness in how the world moves by without asking for your attention. The jars stand quietly, like old friends holding space. The oil glints but does not boast. Shadows slip in and settle near walls and jars and folded cloths. Every sound outside becomes a lull, a slow, ongoing song for sleep. A neighbor's voice softens as it walks past, low and sure, then becomes silence again. Someone sets a pail down with care. Another door clicks shut for the night. These sounds do not disturb. They loosen what has been held tight all day. Even time tiptoes, leaving a smooth line for your thoughts to glide along. There is nothing to do, nothing to solve. The world carries on. Your breath can match its easy rhythm, slow and even, letting each sound fade behind you. The hum of the evening lowers. Everything left outside the door simply passes. Let it go, fold into the hush. The house is quiet now. Shadows slip across the walls where jars rest in neat rows, catching the last bits of lamplight. Faint sounds from outside, a distant dog turning in the dust, a bell in the wind, fade into something softer than thought. The children, two of them curled close together, have drifted beyond talk. Earlier there was noise. A scrape of sandals, a cup set clumsily down, murmured stories. Now there's just the hush of blankets, the slow patter of little breaths. One boy's hand, round and dimpled, has stilled on the clay floor. His fingers curl gently, as if holding a tiny mystery. I move quietly, folding linen at the edge of the room, careful not to disturb what's already at peace. There's no rush now. Nothing to tend, no oil to pour, no one asking what comes next. Only the rhythm of sleeping, gentle in, gentle out. The children's breathing is deep and even, like a tide smoothing the edge of night. If you listen, you might find your own breath matching theirs, a little slower each time. Air slips in, warm and quiet. Pauses linger between the breaths, as if the whole room is waiting for a blessing that's already come. The smallest child has pulled his knees up, tucked beneath his chin, a shape that remembers safety. Sometimes his lips part and he sighs, a sound old as creation. The room feels fuller, not with noise, but with the kind of stillness you only notice when everything else falls away. On the shelf, jars rest from their work. They make no sound of oil moving now. No one speaks of miracles, but everyone feels it somehow in the safe weight of sleep. Even the night air is soft as folded cloth. Light leans low. The children breathe slower yet. You can let your own body follow, each breath gentler than the last. The day's troubles haven't found their way into this room. There's no need for whispers or prayer tonight. The peace is already here, shaping itself around curled shoulders and tangled hair. Their mother sits near the doorway, smoothing a rough blanket over small feet. She doesn't speak, but her hand lingers, patient, always returning. There is provision in every ordinary shape: the cool earthen jar, the pressed palm of bread, the steep comfort of sleep. Simple layers, one upon another. Nothing more is needed. The world is very still. Let your breath move with theirs, slow, soft, steady, into the silence, out with the day. Let this night hold you as safe as a sleeping child. No miracle is happening, not tonight. Only the peace that fills what's empty quietly and lasts until morning. The last bit of sun has let go. A small, uneven line of jars rests along the wall. Some tall, a few squat and round. Clay light, still warm from the day. The room is mostly shadows now. The oil inside the jars hardly moves, barely shining. There's no sound but the familiar weight of the house settling, the cooling air pressing lightly against the floor. She sits in her own corner, nothing in her hands. Her eyes drift over the shapes in the dim. A lint thread on her sleeve, a small chip in the nearest jar's mouth. The blue bowl she washed before dusk, turned upside down to dry. She shifts, adjusting her legs with a tired sigh. Soft scratch of cloth. There is the echo of her children's soft talk from the other room. A giggle, hushed, then quiet again. Even their voices feel slow, like water running over smooth stones. She breathes. Slow in, slow out, her chest rising and falling. The day has stopped asking her for anything. No one needs bread right now. No feet running in or out. Just her and the gentle order of the room. Jars, oil, table. The cracked tile by the door. Her hands relaxed on her knees. Nothing happens, and still it feels full. The fire in the corner is sleeping down to embers, orange at the bottom, gray and easy above. The sound, barely there, is more felt than heard. She looks again at the jars, at the oil, at the story they don't tell out loud, just sitting in the hush of this little place. Her eyes drift close. She doesn't think much about the day. There's nothing for her to sort or fix, at least not tonight. Only the air around her, light and safe. The door is locked. The world is somewhere outside. She folds her arms across her middle. No words come, but the quiet feels deep, steady, a bowl holding everything that happened. If she remembers anything at all, it would simply be how still it is right now. The way dusk holds the walls, the way every jar fits the night. She listens to her own breath. Another minute passes, then another. It could be any house at the end of any day, just presence, only presence. Letting the night do what it does now. The house is quiet, no footsteps, nothing left to finish, just jars resting against the cool wall, empty of worry. Outside, night leans in close to the roof, gentle like a blanket. Someone's shawl hangs over a window latch, still holding the day's warmth. Above everything, the sky is huge and waiting. The color of deep water, the kind of blue that feels quiet all the way through, and the stars, they barely move, scattered like slow, careful breaths a child makes while sleeping. Each one is patient. Each one stays in its place as if there's still time left, plenty of time. They're not in a hurry, just scattered, gentle, infinite, slow, like little cups of light for no one except whoever happens to look up tonight. It's such a soundless sky. Even the trees listen. Even the roof holds its breath somewhere far off. A dog turns in its sleep. Someone's window creaks, but the heavens don't stir. You would think under all this, with so many things waiting quietly, that emptiness would feel heavy. But it doesn't, not tonight. The space above is covering the house, steady, easy, wrapping everything in endless, silent comfort. No need to count the stars, no need to read their meaning, just let them float, slow and simple. Like the story, they ask nothing of you. It's enough to witness, just to see the sky existing. All these soft, patient lights, watching but never crowded, living by being here. Sometimes a breeze slips past the wall, cool on the skin. It brings nothing, takes nothing. The world is still. The jars, the bread, the hands that washed the dishes, all folded into sleep. Let this space above you be a gentle cover. Let breaths match the stars, scattered, soft, unhurried. Nothing and no one is missing tonight. Not a thing is rushed. It all waits and waits in kindness. The Lord is here in this stillness, not moving, just holding. Even the silence, even the sky sacred, slow, blessed, rest beneath it as long as you need. The stars will not slip by. They will keep the night for you. There is nothing left to do in the house tonight. All the voices have faded into the soft dark, and the floor is cool beneath my feet. I sit in the corner, as quiet as the lamp we forgot to trim. The jars are still here, lined up along the wall. So many jars. Some are clay, chipped at the mouth. Some are heavy, a little dark with oil. They all look sturdy in the shadows. Each was borrowed, handled with careful hands, then placed here, where the air is still and the room is gentle and quiet. I watch the oil cooling at the bottom of the biggest jar. It sits without moving, just a small shining pool cupped in terracotta, catching whatever light is left. The other jars, too, are only half-remembered shapes now, round, thin, deep, or shallow. Some jars lean close, others apart. They have swallowed the day. Each one carries the hush of what happened here but doesn't say it aloud. I fold a cloth, smoothing the edge. I set it on the stool. The wood creaks a little. It sounds just like the breathing of someone nearly asleep. One last bench stands by the window, its legs uneven. A jar beside it leans at a strange angle, still sticky from a drop of oil. I reach for it, but stop, it belongs to the hush now, not my hands. There is no rush tonight. No one to fill or pour or clean. The air moves slow, the kind that comes after everything is done. You can almost hear the dust settle and the day let go. The scent of oil is sweet in the quiet, a hint of olives, warm and soft, mixed with old earth and cool stone and fresh linen twisted round my fingers. Shadows deepen. Every object draws itself in. The jars cast twin shadows, one to each side, fading at the base and growing taller on the far wall. The jars do not shine anymore. By moonlight they seem nearly invisible, staying only by the press of their cool shape against the floor. I walk softly, pressing bare feet to the ground. I count the jars again, just by touch. 1, 2, 3, clay, stone, clay. My fingertips rest on the rough rim of each. Oil shines on my skin. With each step, the memory of today quiets even more. With each breath, the stillness gathers, heavier, kinder, deep as a well with no bottom. No one comes to see. No urgent voices. There is only the sound of the house remembering itself, and me, sitting here, back against the cool wall, listening to what's left when the miracle is over. Jars that once asked to be filled are content. Oil that once moved does not hurry now. The house lets itself be ordinary, with ordinary things and nothing to prove. Night thickens outside. The windows hum with an old wind. Somewhere further off, a goat shifts on its rope and the sleeping world forgets its troubles. I do too, or at least I let the weight fall further from my shoulders. There is no more use for worry. Nothing here asks for more. Only the presence, the quiet, a few jars, and the sense that enough remains. In the middle of no event at all, this is the house at rest. Jars against the wall, oil in their bellies. Shadows folding over every object until the room is only darkness, and a single lamp, still unlit, it's grown late. The house is quiet now. Lamps put out, just the faintest orange from a neighbor's window peeking in. Even the jars, lined up, still and empty of their wonder, look plain again, waiting for tomorrow's chores. The floor is sandy. I sweep it one last time, though no one will notice. There's no rush now. The children's breathing is slow and steady, bundled in blankets. I stand for a moment, listening to the hush. Some bread crust left on the table, a cup half full, simple things. I fold a shawl over my shoulders, one, then the next, careful, careful, because the cloth is thin and the night air finds any gap. My hands move on their own muscle memory from so many evenings. This is how it has always been. Tending, tidying with the smallest tired joy. I run a finger along the lip of one empty jar. The oil scent lingers soft and golden. But for now, all the miracle is gone from view, tucked away like salt in a jar. A quiet kind of blessing. Nothing calls for words. Outside, crickets begin, faint at first, then louder. There's nothing left to do. I close my eyes and kneel by the mat, knees on hard earth, palms open. My prayer is only a few gentle words, soft enough not to wake anyone. Lord, here in the stillness, you know my breath, you see even my sleep. I let my worries wait outside tonight. Just me, quiet near the oil jars, letting tired thoughts unravel on the floor beside me. I say it again, slower, until it folds inside. Stillness holds me, the Lord knows my breath. I sleep near holy ground. Even when nothing moves, God is here, chosen, plain. Cared for, it is enough. Amen, no more words, just rest. The room settles, the breath goes slow. Night wraps softly around quiet bodies, and the oil of peace does its work in silence. Let it stay empty and unhurried here until the morning.